It's good to be with you today as we celebrate and remember Albert the Great. And I do want to share as well, it'll be even more welcoming at the breakfast across the way right after Mass to all of those who have served in our armed services that are here today, that are praying with us and joining us for Mass. We're very grateful to have you with us today. Today we celebrate St. Albertus Magnus, right? And he lived in the 13th century in Europe. He was a German Dominican friar, a bishop, a philosopher, and scientist. And he was known during his lifetime with some impressive titles like Doctor Universalis and Doctor Expertus. And he was known as the greatest German philosopher and theologian of the Middle Ages. And he contributed to some very important areas such as natural law, morality, music, and astronomy, among many others. There is this image of the church in medieval Europe that we get through a lot of the history that's been we've been exposed to. You get told it's the Dark Ages. It's a time of intellectual diminishment. And obviously there's going to be instances where there's a lot of truth in that. But historians have also looked back over the Dark Ages and found that this was a time of intellectual undergirding of what would later, the later progress you would find in the Renaissance, in the Enlightenment, and the Post-Enlightenment. To put it simply, the Catholic Church teaches that God is one, God is rational, God is not beyond the power of, beyond the power of reason. He is truth itself. And the world or the universe, the entire, everything that exists, that as much of it as there is, has rationality as well. And so in the Middle Ages, they were in the process of building what would later on become the science of today. And if you look, you'll see that some priests and religious sisters and brothers have made significant contributions to key scientific theories. This is true in many, many areas. So I definitely would encourage you, if you've never typed in, have Catholics discovered anything, or Catholic scientists, you'll find that there are many contributions that have been made. And we actually see this in the reading from the Book of Wisdom, which is maybe a little confusing to listen to, that we've been reading all week from Wisdom. And this wisdom is basically, in the Jewish mind, how to live. How to live. It's not really speculative wisdom. They're not breaking down, the structure of the quark. They're not looking at the quantum physics or anything. What they're doing is talking about what I've been sharing about this idea that God, his nature, flows out into the world that he has created. And specifically, for the purposes of this author, the sacred author, he wants to talk about the Israelite community and how they've been chosen by God, and that they have a purpose to be God's people. And then we say as Catholics, as Christians, that God has given us that the Israelite community fulfilled their purpose, and it was in a sense temporary, right? And that God has extended his salvation to all through the church, to the Catholic Church, is what I believe. And, I don't want to talk about the gospel too much, just because I feel that you can only say so many new things in one homily, and I want to keep kind of focused. So St. Albert the Great really is one of my favorite saints, because the popes tell us, especially I think of Benedict XVI John Paul II did this as well, that faith and reason are both very important. Sometimes they can even be described as two sides of the same coin. We could say that because the same God reveals all. So it's important to understand that the teachings of Christianity, the Trinity, the Incarnation, the redemption, the resurrection, you can't prove these things without faith. You have to have faith, which is a gift of God. You can't go and prove them like you can prove the intestinal structure of a person's body or any of those kind of things. You can't prove that. You need the gift of faith. But reason is very important, and we can see, like with natural reason, we can see that God has created a universe that is discoverable, is testable, is able to help lead us back to God. And so reason itself can be seen as having a purpose. And so I encourage you, as you pray, as you continue to read Scripture, to study the church, to study how to live as a Catholic, that you would ask God to give you faith that is reasonable and help make your reason more inspired and guided by the light of faith and by the fire of hope and action of charity.